teach the Negro people don't even know their own name. Why? Because he took it away from them. Please. 20 million black people don't even know their own language. Why? Because he took it away from them. 20 million black people who don't even know the history of their ancestors. Why? Because he took it away from them. And if you try and tell them how thoroughly and completely they've been robbed, he says you're teaching hate.
I want to touch on the importance of melanin in the human skin. So me, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys, grew up thinking or hearing that being black is bad, being too black is bad, being light skinned or being white is more, you know what I'm saying, powerful or more attractive, because that's obviously what we see on our commercials, on our TV, everywhere we go, on posters, you know what I'm saying? We see these Caucasian images, we see these more lighter images, being more successful in life, and most likely in comedy, people talk down on, oh, you're black, blah, blah, ASS, you know what I'm saying? That's straight buffoonery, that's foolishness. And if you have knowledge of self, scientifically, you will know that the more melanin in a human body is the better, the more in tune you are with nature. Our sun is the primary life giver on this planet, and our melanin, through a process called ultra-fast eternal conversion, it allows our skin, our melanin, to absorb that sunlight, those harmful UV rays that can be harmful for some people, and turn it into harmless heat in the human body. You know what I'm saying? So that's basically, melanin gives us the ability to live our everyday life with the sun or with nature, because sun is a part of nature and it's a primary life giver to this planet. Our sun gives us so much nutrients, and our melanin allows us to adapt with this powerful force, the sun, and adapt us to live in peaceful mutuality with the sun and with nature. So that's one thing that melanin can do for you. And I took a couple notes here stating the difference between the black, more melanated man and the Caucasian man, which has less melanin. It is said that all humans possess melanin, but not to the degree that African people all over the world do. Black people have around 360 centers, melanin centers, in their stomach region, as opposed to Caucasians, which only have 40. The African black human, which has primarily 12 melanin centers in their brain, while the non-African brain only have 2 melanin centers. The key to effectiveness of melanin is the fact that it is primarily carbon-based and is the most effective in handling heat and ray of the sun, primary life giver of the planet, which I talked about earlier. The ancestors of not only the world but primarily black people had highly developed body parts and organs, especially a part of the human body called the pineal gland. This is where it gets important, because the pineal gland is where our melanin processes. This part of the body, along with the pituitary gland, allows individuals to sense things and visualize things in their environment that cannot be sensed through the ordinary 5 senses, and which do not work nearly as much as it did in the past because of a dumbed down society. I mean, things like fluoride in our water, the poisons in our food. Our organs of our human body, it can't work as strong as it usually does. And they know that. That's why they poison us. That's why they spray us with chemtrails. So we can't, you know what I'm saying, be as strong as we can. So even physically, not even spiritually, physically, we're not as strong as we can because of all the poisons that we take in our body. So it's important for you to stay healthy and pick your poisons. Another note I took, melanin means black amino and is a color pigment composed of hydrocarbon chain which has various amino, nitrogen based compounds attached to it. It is carbon that gives melanin its blackness. Carbon is the organizing molecule that gives melanin its structure. It is carbon that gives melanin the ability to absorb energy and bend with other molecules while retaining stability. So basically these notes that I took is basically pointing key things of how important it is to have melanin. or to even process melanin. Because as I was telling you, as a black male, I don't care if you're light skinned or whatever, you can be out in the sun and your melanin, just having the amount of melanin you have, it will allow a production in melanin just by being out in the sun, working out in the sun, playing out in the sun, having sun out in the sun, it would give a production called melanogenesis, a production of melanin which will make you darker and which will make you stronger, you know what I'm saying? It will make you more in tune with the universe. Our melanin is processed in our pineal gland, and through our pineal gland, it's a pineal gland organ is a very powerful organ which allows us to do supernatural things. As some of them were stated in the notes, but also this is what allows us to be more like telepathic, you know what I'm saying? And you can work on that through meditation and other things like that, yoga, just getting your body back in tune with nature. But I really want young black males and young black females to know how they're important. And you having melanin is just putting you on a whole different level than some of these other people who don't have as much as melanin. It puts you more in tune with nature. It's more power. And we are the original people of this planet. You know what I'm saying? We are the originators. Most of these races, they came from us. We father these races. Most of these races, they still pray to our ancestors. They walk around knowing who we are, and we don't know who we are. We have to put this idiotic stuff behind us. We watch TV. We think it's cool to be light-skinned. Girls try to straighten their hair. This is beautiful. This hair right here is beautiful. Our skin is beautiful. It's powerful.
In this video, I'll be discussing the various interpretations of the third eye and its connection to our so-called reality and dream worlds. Let's start with the pineal gland. The pineal gland is a small organ shaped like a pine cone, hence its name, which I'll get into later. It was also the last endocrine gland to have its function discovered. Its location, found deep within the brain, implies its significance. This led to it being considered a mystery gland, with all kinds of superstition, myth, and even metaphysical theories surrounding its supposed function. It's often associated with the sixth chakra, or third eye, called ajna in yoga. It is believed to be the dormant organ which can be awakened to unlock our hidden telepathic abilities and our inner vision. In the physical body, did you know that the eye views objects upside down? Then it sends those images it observes to the brain, which interprets them and makes it appear to us as right side up. According to René Descartes, who considered the pineal gland the seat of the soul, said it was our link to the one non-material part of the universe, the mind. This is one reason why I never try and refer directly to the terms right, wrong, good, or bad, because I find them to be such vague extremes that don't actually exist except on paper in people's minds. Generally, those terms are left up to each individual's imagination to determine which is which, until they're pulling rabbits out of their own hat and eventually pulling people down with them. I do think that the terms positive and negative are ideas we can relate to because it is what lines the very fabric of our universe and essence of our being. Life and death, light and dark, hot and cold, ad infinitum. Since everything essentially came from the same singularity in space, it means you and all that surrounds you are an amalgamated, randomized, ever-changing interpretation of itself, perceptually aware of the countless randomized branches extending outward at any given moment, which when you think deeply about it, is actually a glance into the many faces of your true self. Some of those faces are easier to relate to than others. Some are frightening and hard to accept. Others are exciting. However, all of them are inescapably a part of you as the self-aware universe. I always like to equate it to walking through a hall of mirrors of the mind, introspectively looking into the different aspects of the conscious self in the grand sense of the word. Unequivocally, what you or I individually think from the finite constructs of the ego is a temporary charade, a masquerade ball we all buy into for a short time to give us purpose. On the other hand, if one peels their perspective back enough, past myself, yourself, himself, herself, their selves, ourselves, one would see that it is just a game we play with our collective higher mind. When we step back into the discourse of the duality, however, We collectively demonize and burn people at the stake to continue forward with confidence in a given random direction, as we perpetually find ourselves caught in the eternal dance between a 1 and a 0.
The interior of the pineal gland, all along the inside, has rods and cones just like the retina on your eye. Do you think that maybe when they called it a third eye, that they knew what they were talking about? Do you think that an eye must have a cornea and a lens and all this vitreous fluid in it like we have? The fluid is there, but you just got the retina. So there's something that appears to be happening inside. It's like there's a little television in here, and you can actually get audio out of it, and you can get video out of it, and that video feed is being picked up by the rods and cones, and that's your imagination. That's the mind's eye. You actually have a retina. Have you noticed that when you visualize something strongly enough that you really do see it? You can close your eyes, but you're still seeing things. This is where it's coming from.
If you visualize something strong enough from your third eye, it becomes a reality. This is Me, the kanji, for your third eye. Let's look at its construction. You see the wall-shaped crown, the sun, and the lid which opens up at the bottom. To help you understand it more visually, if you open up the lid to your crowned sun, I'll say it again, if you open up the lid to your crowned sun, that is your third eye. This leads me to the next connection in that kanji character. If you look at the open lid, it's actually a number 6. Look at the left-hand side. There are 6 emotions, 6 senses, 6 directions, 6 classes of characters, and the universe also has a number 6 in it. And if you close the lid at the bottom of the left-hand side, you'll see it's closed. That's deceased, or the late, or dying. As you can see, there's a lot more to kanji than meets the eye, pardon the pun. Allow me to continue. If you put a regular eye next to your third eye on the left-hand side here, and then you think about it with imagination on the right-hand side here, you are in meditation. Nearly every ancient culture knew of the hidden powers of the pineal gland and what it does to connect us to this reality. If you still have a hard time grasping this, just look at the shape of the pineal gland versus the shape of a pine cone, the lotus flower, our universe, and how it folds in on itself. Again, this pine cone connection can be found in nearly every culture, as we see here at the top left, the Pope carrying a pine cone-like staff. In the upper right, Bacchus, a Greek god, carrying a pine cone staff as well. In the lower left, Buddha's head being shaped like a pine cone as he's reaching enlightenment. In the center, the statue found at the Vatican is a pine cone, taller than 2 or 3 people, one of the biggest found at the Vatican. This connection is unmistakable. The pharaohs, the Mayans, and nearly all the ancient cultures knew this connection of the pineal. Look at the lower right. You see the staff of Osiris carrying the pineal as well.
The physical body of the pharaoh was rendered timeless, perhaps turned into an open gate, or perhaps a type of anchor. It was heavily supplied with all manner of spells, amulets, talismans, and other forms of magical protection. The strange practice of mummification still holds many mysteries. Why were some organs carefully preserved while the brain was scooped out and discarded? An unexpected insight into this question can be found in the work of Dr. Rick Strassman. His pioneering work has raised some very important questions about the pineal gland and its interaction with a strange hallucinogenic chemical known as DMT.
Interestingly enough, Rick Strassman found this connection to Buddhism through DMT, and that being one of 49 days. You see, in Buddhism, 49 days after death is called bardo, and the soul hangs around for 49 days waiting for a new body. And in Rick Strassman's study, the 49-day connection was found with the fetus, and 49 days after conception, the presence of the pineal gland and DMT is found. This just further proves that the mystics, monks, and gurus knew what they were talking about when they thought about the third eye as the seat of the soul. Which really makes you think, those people we consider mental patients are crazy. Are they actually crazy, or are they seeing into higher realms of reality that we are not able to see under normal states of consciousness by unlocking this chemical DMT? Rick Strassman found in these studies that people were reaching the same results, seeing the same things, and going to the same altered states of consciousness, all from different walks of life. Don't you think, if you haven't already, it's time to start trying to unlock your third eye so we can finally start to turn this ship around?
With me next month for this Negro History Week, they call it. And during this week comes around once every year. And during this 1 week, they drowned us with propaganda of Negro history in Georgia, and Mississippi, and Alabama. Never do they take us back across the water back home. They take us down home, but they never give us the history of back home. They never give us enough information to let us know what were we doing before we ended up in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and some of those other prison states. They give us the impression with Negro History Week that we were cotton pickers all of our lives. Cotton pickers, orange growers, mammies and uncles for the white man in this country. George Washington Carver, he was a scientist, but he died broke. He made Ford rich. So he wasn't doing anything for himself and his people. He got a good name for us, but what did we get out of it? Nothing. The master got it. It's like a dog who runs out in the woods and grabs a rat. No matter how hungry the dog is, does he eat it? No. He takes it back and lays it at the boss's feet. And the boss skins it, takes the meat, and gives the dog the bone. And the dog is going right on hungry again. But the same way with you and me. Every contribution we make, we don't make it for our people. We make it for the man. We make it for our master. He gets the benefit from it. We die, except for our people. We die for him. We don't die for our home and our house. We die for his house. We don't die for our country. We die for his country. A lot of you all were fools on the front line. Were you not? Yes, you were. You put on the uniform and were right up on the front line, like a roaring hound dog, barking for master. And when you come back here, you'll have to bark when you got back. So Negro History Week reminds us of this. It doesn't remind us of past achievements, but it reminds us only of the achievements we made in the Western Hemisphere under the tutelage of the white man. So that whatever achievement that was made in the Western Hemisphere that the spotlight is put upon, this is the white man's shrewd way of taking credit for whatever we accomplished. But he never let us know of an accomplishment that we made prior to being brought here. The worst trick of all is when he names us Negro and calls us Negro. And then when we call ourselves that, we end up tricking ourselves. Until we were brought here and made into that, we were scientifically produced by the white man. And whenever you see somebody who calls himself a Negro, he's a product of Western civilization. Not only Western civilization, but Western crime. The Negro, as he is called, or calls himself, in the West, is the best evidence that can be used against Western civilization today. One of the main reasons we're called Negro is so we won't know who we really are.
And when you call yourself that, you don't know who you really are. You don't know what you are, you don't know where you came from. You don't know what is yours. And as long as you call yourself a Negro, nothing is yours. No languages. You can't lay claim to any language, not even English. You mess it up. You can't lay claim to any name, any kind of name that will identify you as something that you should be. You can't lay claim to any culture as long as you use the word Negro to identify yourself. It attaches you to nothing. It doesn't even identify your color. If you talk about one of them, they call themselves white. Negro. Doesn't tell you anything. I mean nothing. Absolutely nothing. What do you identify with? Tell me. Nothing. What do you attach it to? What do you attach to it? Nothing. It's completely in the middle of nowhere. And when you call yourself that, that's where you are, right in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't give you a language, because there's no such thing as a Negro language. It doesn't give you a country, because there's no such thing as a Negro country. It doesn't give you a culture. There's no such thing as Negro culture. It doesn't exist. The land doesn't exist. The culture doesn't exist. The language doesn't exist. And the man doesn't exist. And you can walk around in front of them all day long from then on, and they act like you don't even see. Because you made yourself non-existent. It's a person who has no history. And by having no history, he has no culture. Just as a tree without roots is dead, a people without history or cultural roots also become a dead people. And when you look at us, those of us who are called Negro, we're called that because we're like a dead people. We have nothing to identify ourselves as part of the human family. You know, you take a tree, you can tell what kind of tree it is by looking at the leaves. If the leaves are gone, you can look at the bark and tell what kind it is. But when you find a tree with the leaves gone and the bark gone, everything gone, you call that a what? A stump. And you can't identify a stump as easily as you can identify a tree. And this is the position that you and I are in here in America. Formerly, we could be identified by the names we wore when we came here. When we were first brought here, we had different names. When we were first brought here, we had a different language. And these names and this language identified the culture that we were brought from, the land that we were brought from. And in identifying that, we were able to point toward what we had produced, our net worth. But once our names were taken and our language was taken and our identity was destroyed and our roots were cut off with no history, we became like a stump, something dead, a twig, over here in the Western Hemisphere. And anybody could step on us, trample upon us, or burn us, and there'd be nothing that we could do about it. There are stories in the Bible that can be used easily to pretty well tell the condition of the black man in America once he became a Negro, where they refer to him as the lost sheep, meaning someone who's lost from his own kind. That's which is how you and I have been for the past 400 years. We've been in a land where we are not citizens, or in a land where they treated us as strangers. But you never could identify the symbolic meaning of those bones, how they were dead because they had been cut off from their own time. And our people here in America have been in the same condition as those dry bones that you sit in church singing about. But you shed more tears over those dry bones than you shed over yourself. This shows what happens to a people when they are cut off and stripped of everything, like you and I have been cut off and stripped of everything. We become a people like no other people. And we are a people like no other people. No other people on earth like you and me. We're unique. We're different. They say that we're Negroes, and they say that Negro means black, but yet they don't call all black people Negroes. You see the contradiction? Mind you, they say that we're Negroes because Negro means black in Spanish, yet they don't call all black people Negroes. Something there doesn't add up. And then to get around it, they say mankind is divided up into three categories: Mongoloid, Caucasoid, and Negro. Now pick up on that. And all black people aren't Negro. They got some jet black ones that they classify as Caucasoid. But if you study very closely, all of the black ones that they classify as Caucasoid are those that still have great civilization, or still have the remains of what was once a great civilization. And the only ones that they classify as Negroid are those that they find with no evidence that they were ever civilized. Then they call them Negroid. But they can't afford to let any black-skinned people who have evidence that they formerly occupied a high seat in civilization, they can't afford to let them be called Negroid, so they take them on into the Caucasoid classification. And actually, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, and Negroid is no such thing. These are so-called anthropological terms that were put together by anthropologists who were nothing but agents of the colonial powers, and they were purposely given their status. They were purposely given such scientific positions in order that they could come up with definitions that would justify the European domination over the African and the Asian. So immediately they invented classifications that would automatically demote these people or put them on a lesser level. All of the Caucasoids are the high level. The Negroids are kept at a low level. This is just plain trickery that their scientists engage in order to keep you and me thinking that we never were nothing, and therefore he's doing us a favor if he lets us step upward or forward in his particular society or civilization. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Once you see that the condition that we're in is directly related to our lack of knowledge concerning the history of the black man, only then do you realize the importance of knowing something about the history of the black man. And the black man's history, when you refer to him as a black man, you go way back. But when you refer to him as a Negro, you can only go as far back as the Negro goes. And when you go beyond the shores of America, you can't find the Negro. So if you go beyond the shores of America in history, looking for the history of the black man, if you're looking for him under the term Negro, you won't find him. He doesn't exist. So you end up thinking that you didn't play any role in history. But if you want to take the time to do research for yourself, I think you'll find that on the African continent, there was always, prior to the discovery of America, there was always a higher level of history, or rather a higher level of culture and civilization than that which existed in Europe at the same time. At least 5,000 years ago, they had a black civilization in the Middle East. It wasn't even in Africa. In the Middle East, called the Sumerians. Now when they show you pictures of the Sumerians, they're trying to make you think that they were white people. But if you go and read some of the ancient manuscripts, or even read between the lines on some of the current writers, you'll find that the Sumerian civilization was a very dark-skinned civilization, and it existed prior even to the existence of the Babylonian Empire, right in the same area where you find Iraq and the Tigris, Euphrates rivers there. It was a black-skinned people who lived there, who had a high state of culture way back then. And at a time even beyond theirs, there was a black-skinned people in India who were black. This is black as you and I, called Dravidians. They inhabited the subcontinent of India even before the present people that you see living there today. And they had a high state of culture. And the present people of India even looked upon them as gods. Most of their statues, if you notice, have pronounced African features. You go right to India today, in their religion, which is called Buddhism, and they give all their Buddhas the image of a black man, with his lips and his nose and even show his hair all curled up on his head. His hair they didn't curl it up. He was born that way. And these people lived in that area before the present people of India lived there. The black man lived in the Middle East before the present people who are now living there lived there. And he had a high culture and a high civilization, to say nothing about the oldest civilization of all that he had in Egypt among the banks of the Nile. And in Carthage in northwest Africa, another part of the continent, and at a later date in Mali and Ghana and Tonga and the Moorish civilization. All of these civilizations existed on the African continent before America was discovered. Now, the black civilization that shook the white man up the most was the Egyptian civilization. And it was a black civilization. It was along the banks of the Nile, which went through the heart of Africa. But again, this is tricky white man, and he's tricky. Mind you again how to say this. It's not a racist thing. Some of them might be tricky, but all of them white men are tricky. And his civilization shows his trickiness. This tricky white man that was able to take the Egyptian civilization, write books about it, put pictures in those books, make movies for television and the theater. So skillfully done until he had even convinced other white people that the ancient Egyptians were white people themselves. They were Africans. They were some African as you and I. And he even gave the clue away when he made this movie, King Solomon's Mines. And he showed the Watusis, with their black cells. And he outright admitted in there that they looked like the ancient pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Which means that the white man himself, he knows that the black man had this high civilization in Egypt. Which today the remains show the black man in that area had mastered mathematics, had mastered architecture, had put the building, the art of building, science of building things, had even mastered astronomy. The pyramid, as the white scientists admit, is constructed in such a position on this earth to show that the black people who were the architects of it had a knowledge of geography that was so vast, they knew the exact center of the Earth's landmass, because the base of the pyramid is located in the exact center of the Earth's landmass, which it could not have been so situated by its architect unless the architect in that day had known that the Earth was round and knew how much land there was in all directions from where you were getting. And the pyramid was built so many thousand years ago that they don't even know the exact time that it was built. But they do know that the people who brought it into existence had mastered the science of building, had mastered the various sciences of the earth, and had mastered astronomy. I read where one scientist said that the architect of the pyramid had built a shaft that went outward from the center of the pyramid, and the place where it marked in the sky was the location where a star, a blue star, I think, some color star, made an appearance only once every 50,000 years. Now they say that this architect's knowledge of astronomy was so vast that he evidently had access to histories or records that spotlighted the existence of a star that made its appearance at a certain spot in the sky only once every 50,000 years. Now, he could not have known this unless he had records going back beyond 50,000 years. Yet the pyramid is a living witness today that the black people who were responsible for bringing it into existence had this kind of knowledge. And when you read the opinions of the white scientists about the pyramid and the builders of the pyramid, they don't make any secret at all over the fact that they marvel over the scientific ability that was in the possession of those people way back then. They had mastered chemistry to such extent they could make paints.
What I was showing him was this picture here of these statues that were found over in Egypt, Upper Egypt, of black men that were placed there or carved out of solid granite thousands of years ago. And if you notice, he didn't ever turn it toward the camera. He kept it down. Well, I started to turn it toward the camera, but I didn't. I was trying to be polite. And at that point. And but today in the Los Angeles Times on page 2, they have this same picture. You look in today's Los Angeles Sunday Times, and they have a story on page 2 about this temple over in Africa. They call it Egypt, but Egypt is in Africa. And the value of which is so tremendous, it points out how the United Nations is trying to float a loan of around $30 million to save this temple from being covered by the waters that will be brought up by this Aswan Dam that they're trying to build over there. And this thing is so shrewdly done that the average Negro will look at it and read it, and because it says Egypt, he never identifies it with him or him with it. It shows you how shrewd the white man is. But when all you have to do is look at the features of the thing, and you can see, brother, they got all the features that the white man says Negroes have. But because it is associated or connected with something of such value, archaeological and historic, anthropological value, the white man tries to steal it for himself and says, no, these are white people, these aren't black people. The Los Angeles Times today, and read page 2, and look at this for yourself. Look closely at it, and then, and if you notice, you'll also read in there where the United States is on record as being against putting out the money necessary to save this archaeological wonder. They're against it. And it tells you in the paper that they're against it. They want to let it go on and go beneath the waves. There was a time when America would be for preserving something like that. Because in those days, the black man was so dead mentally, he could look right at it and wouldn't know he was looking at himself. He looked right at it and wouldn't know he was looking at himself. And today, when we see a black man, we know that's a black man. Whether they call him an Egyptian, a Re-Egyptian, or an Abgyptian. Don't care what they call him. All you got, if he look like you, he's the same thing as you. And this man that they have here, brothers and sisters, it has nothing but the features of a pure black man. Also, they tell me that there's an exhibition going on in Los Angeles right now somewhere about King Tut. Where is that? Some kind of museum. Where is it? I saw King Tut's mummy tomb when I was in Egypt. And I don't know if they have the same one here, but if you go and see it, you'll find out that this King Tut, whose mummy or sarcophagus, whatever they call it, they have, it's as black as this boy. And the white man knows this. Every picture that they have of King Tut, he's not brown. No, he is black, brother, just like this. And the black people who lived in that day had mastered science to such extent, had mastered chemistry to such extent that they could create colors that the dye hasn't faded to this day. Now you know this, the white man got to paint his house every year. You got to paint yours, inside and out. You haven't got a piece of cloth at home that won't fade if you put it in the sun. But yet these black people back there could make dye that has retained the color, same grade, quality, right down to the day from 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. They were master chemists. And this tomb, and I guess this mummy, is gold encrusted. They had so much gold back then. In fact, those were the people who discovered gold. They knew what gold was. White man didn't know what gold was. And they encrusted their mummies with gold and beautiful colors and just laid them there. And finally, when the white man discovered them, he was shook up and wondered, how could these people back so long ago, supposed to be dumb, know so much about so much, know so much about so many things that he doesn't know about today. And usually when he projects these findings, these wonders, these relics from the past, when he projects them into this particular society now, our poor, dumb people, number one, they usually don't go and look at it. You don't find very many Negroes in museums. No, they don't. They go to the ballpark, to the ball game. They don't even go to the zoo. You seldom find Negroes in a museum or in some place where there is something that's going to teach them something. And again, I'm not knocking Negroes saying this. I'm talking to you and me. As Minister John said, there's no strangers here today. We're having a little family chat. And when you have a family chat, you can talk the faults as well as the liabilities as well as the assets. And once you pull out these liabilities, you can correct them. You can go out to any museum and you'll find white people, white women, white mothers, white parents taking their little children through the museum, showing them this and showing them that. Why, our women don't do that. And because you don't do that, you actually leave a vacuum in the mind of your child. So now I don't know what this exhibition consists of these Egyptian relics that's on display out here. But as Allah blessed me to see it when I was in Egypt at the Cairo Museum, all of these splendors that belong to that ancient civilization along the Nile that has shocked the white man are relics right out of the past of the black man. And as a rule, you don't have any white man who doesn't know this. He will only contend with you if he thinks that you don't know what you're talking about. But then when the deal goes down, if he won't admit that they're outright black, he'll say, well, they got black blood. He's hard for him to admit the full truth, but if you can get him to admit a little bit of truth, the Negro will wake up, because the only truth he accepts is truth that he has come from the lips of the white man.